Hi there, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Betsy and I bake a lot. Today what we're going to make is one from my childhood. When I was growing up, we would get to go to this place on special occasions called Jumer's, and it was a fancy restaurant, and they had a bread basket that came to the table, and inside the bread basket were these tiny little cinnamon roll nuggets, and my sister and I would fight to the death to try to get them, and because my mom would never ask for extra. So we would fight to the death to get them, and they were just so amazing. So years later, my mom's best friend came up with a recipe, kind of cloned a recipe because she loved them too. And so I have been making these for years, and they take me right back to when I was little, growing up at that restaurant. So this one is a yeast-based recipe, but we're not talking about yeast like making wheat bread. That is super sensitive. This one has a lot of wiggle room in it, so you never have to be scared of this one. I know a lot of people do get scared of yeast, but this one is super easy, in part because we're starting with a baking mix. That already has leavening agents in it, so if we do a little mess up with the yeast, we're still going to turn out great. Plus, cinnamon, sugar, and butter mixed together is good no matter how it turns out. So this one starts with yeast. So the way I use yeast is it always has to be dissolved in warm water, and I turn my faucet on to as warm as I can get it. That's never quite warm enough, so I take that and then I put it in the microwave for about 15 seconds. For this recipe, that will be perfect. So I'm gonna start with a half a cup of warm water and add to that. I use the quick yeast. I've used both, so you can use whichever works for you. Just make sure it hasn't expired. That is the one thing you never want with yeast. So we're just gonna mix that up and let it sit. It just needs to start doing its thing. While that's sitting there, starting to activate, we're gonna take our baking mix. And when I say baking mix, I use Bisquick. There's a lot of other baking mixes out there. There's no proper one. This is just the one I use. You'll also know I'm not using my mixer because this recipe is kind of done by hand. You could put it in the mixer, but there's no need. This one we get to get dirty. Baking mix, and then we're gonna add cold water. We're gonna add 1 cup of cold water to that. Once we have that in there, we're just gonna start with our hands, getting it in there. Once we get that mixed a little, we go back to the yeast and add that. And now, we just mix it up until it's completely mixed together. All I'm looking for is everything, all the dry ingredients to be gone. Nothing beyond that. Okay, while that's resting for a little bit, we're gonna get the rest of our recipe ready to go. The best part of this recipe is the butter. So, 1.5 cups of butter, and I'm gonna get that in the microwave melting. You can't make cinnamon rolls without butter. Again, I use salted butter. No magic to that, it's just what I prefer. In another bowl, I'm going to get the cinnamon sugar mixture all ready to go. That is 2 cups of sugar, and 8 teaspoons of cinnamon. And we'll get that all mixed together. Okay, so for this one, we're gonna have to roll it out. So I've got my butter ready and my cinnamon sugar mixture. This batch is gonna make the half sheet pan, so I'm gonna get the pan sprayed up and ready to go. I use canola oil spray. The only reason I do that is I like the taste of canola oil. Any spray will work. This recipe can be made into just 2 halves, and we're gonna roll it out twice. So we take the first half, divide it in half, and we need lots of flour on our counter. This is gonna make a long roll, so give yourself lots of space. So we take the first half and really get it coated in the flour. Once you've got it coated, pat it out so it's about 4 inches wide. Kind of make a rectangle to start with. Once you have the rectangle, cover it in flour, and now we're just going to roll it out the long way. Our goal is to try to keep it the same width and just create length. I have found that if you take one swipe at it like this, cover it with flour, and flip it back over, you won't have any sticking problems in the end. Now we've got this, we just roll it out to be at the right length. And so it's kind of the same width all along. We're looking to get it about an 1/8 inch thick, but the most important part is just make sure it's the same width so that when you roll them up, you don't get real thick ones and real thin ones. Okay, once we have a nice long roll, we're gonna add butter. I'll start with a 1/2 cup. Just pour that down the middle and kind of spread it out. Once that's spread out, I'm gonna add some cinnamon sugar. I'm gonna start with about a 1/2 cup as well. And my goal here is to just try to make it even as best I can. I don't think 1/2 cup is quite enough. I'm gonna add about another 1/4 cup. What I'm looking for is enough cinnamon sugar so there's some dry spots. I want it really buttery, but I want to know there's enough on there. And when I'll know that, when I start to get a few dry spots along the way. Nice cinnamon sugar on top. Now I just have to roll it. Since this is not a true bread, like a yeast bread, rolling it is delicate. So you gotta go little baby steps here until we get it really going well. Once it starts getting, you can see it's getting easier for me as I've got it kind of going. But I just keep working back and forth from end to end to get a nice roll. Okay, once I get it done, I kind of straighten it out, stretch it out so it looks all even, and I'm gonna cut it into 1-inch pieces. And now I just start putting them in the pan. And now for the second log. If you weren't here, I would clean up right now. So once we have a full pan, we're not done with the butter. What makes these so good is the amount of butter and cinnamon sugar. Never say never, but very rarely are you ever going to see me make something that's diet. But that's about creating good memories, and desserts are meant to be eaten in moderation and to be really good. More butter over the top, and then we top it off with the remaining cinnamon sugar. So they're ready to go in the oven, 350 degrees for about 22 minutes. I so wish you could smell this right now, but this is what they look like when they come out of the oven. And there is nothing better than these first thing in the morning.